Good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session. It's Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. It's 9:03 a.m. My name is Ty Mentor, Chair of the Board. The Vice Chair, Commissioner Gary Edwards, just walked into the boardroom, and Commissioner Carolina Mejia is present through our Zoom platform. Public can follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel, where this meeting is being live streamed and archived. We have a 3-hour session this morning with a lot of items. So we'll go straight to item 1, COVID-19 update. I see Dr. Abdul Malik, our County Health Officer, and Shelley Slaughter, our Director of Public Health. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Today is day 615 of Thurston County's COVID-19 pandemic emergency response. In Washington State, according to Department of Health, there have been 684,532 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the state of Washington since the pandemic began, with 8,064 deaths. This includes 19,076 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Thurston County residents, with 567 new cases in the last week. This puts us at 500.4 on the governor's risk assessment dashboard over the last 14 days, still extremely high, although we're encouraged that things are seeming to trend down slightly. 212 Thurston County residents have lost their lives due to COVID-19, with 13 new deaths reported to Thurston County Public Health in the last week. 1,220 Thurston County residents have been hospitalized due to complications of COVID-19, with 8 new hospitalizations occurring in the last week. Our current hospital capacity status in Thurston County is stable, but there are 51 COVID positive patients in our local hospitals, and 26 of those are on ventilators. Our ICU capacity is at 81%. And our acute hospital capacity beds are at 97%, so extremely full still. We have seen an increase in the number of people seeking COVID-19 vaccinations. There have been 347,857 doses of COVID-19 vaccines administered in our county thus far by a variety of providers. 61.2% of our total population has initiated at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, and 56.5% of our Thurston County population is fully vaccinated. Of those 16 and older, 72.5% have initiated a vaccine series, and 67.1% of those 16 and older are fully vaccinated. 71.3% of 12 and up have initiated, and 65.8% of 12 and up are considered fully vaccinated. We do have vaccines available at the Capitol Mall 7 days a week, operated by Thurston County Public Health, as well as multiple other sites. Encourage people to check out our website for the latest places where they can get their COVID-19 vaccine or their booster dose if they qualify. And also for people that are seeking testing, we are at Rochester Organization of Families today from 10 to 1. We'll be at our community-based team. We'll be in Lacey tomorrow, Union Gospel Mission downtown Olympia on Thursday, and Friday at the Evergreen State College. There's also information on our website about other testing locations. Highly encourage people who are experiencing any symptom of COVID-19 to please get tested. We do not know our test positivity rate still, and we do not expect to have that information from the State Department of Health until after October 31st. And Dr. Abdul Malik is joining me today to add anything else that I may have not covered today.
Good morning, Commissioners. Our case rates are continuing to trend downward. We're currently at 500 cases per 100,000 over the past 14 days on the state's COVID-19 dashboard. But we are seeing fewer cases than we were seeing even a week ago. There is still a significant transmission risk. So I'm definitely encouraging folks to continue to take all the appropriate precautions, masking in public, maintaining that distance with non-household members where possible, and really trying to avoid crowded areas and crowded spaces. Our weather is changing, and so it's more important now than ever to try to take some of those precautions when we're out in public. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Commissioner Mejia, any questions?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes. I don't know who would answer this, but is there any antibody testing going on for those individuals that feel they've recovered to see what kind of shape they're in? And possibly, I'm thinking maybe that's going to be recognized at some point, and maybe they would need to show that they did have a recovery. So anything on that?
So there have been multiple tests looking at antibody levels in infected individuals over time, or people who have cleared infection over time. What we do know at this point is that within that first 90-day period after infection, reinfection is extremely rare because antibody levels during that time period are high. There can be detectable antibody levels, but at a lower concentration for months afterward. But in terms of so our state and other and the CDC are looking at reinfection rates over time, and we should be getting some clarity on how long the protection lasts from if somebody is infected. So yes, there's a lot of work on that, but we don't have a hard answer. What we do know is that it's very unlikely within the first 90 days after infection.
Even oh, okay, go ahead, Shelley. I'm sorry.
Excuse me, I was just going to say, Dr. Abdulmalik, are you aware of any location in Thurston County that is offering that, or providers that are offering that?
So a lot of the antibody testing, so that ends up being provider by provider. So providers can order antibody testing, and I've definitely heard reports of it being ordered, but the significance of testing positive for antibodies, depending on how long after infection a person is something that's still under review. The blood bank has also been testing the blood of donors for COVID-19 antibodies.
How about those individuals that have been vaccinated and then they come down with the virus? Have you had the same situation develop with those individuals that have recovered from having the virus?
So yes, there have been reports of reinfection. In terms of in Thurston County, what that looks like is that if somebody is if somebody's within the 90 days, we do testing. But we facilitate or we recommend testing for not only COVID, but other viral respiratory illnesses for people where there's a concern for reinfection, and we have the first specimen that the first specimen that the person took is still available. We try to facilitate with the lab, the public health lab, or other labs that are part of this collaboration throughout the state. We do try to facilitate sequencing of the initial sample where the initial sample is there with a new sample to determine whether it's persistent viral shedding from infection or a new or reinfection with a new virus with the new COVID-19 variant. So the confirmation piece is fairly labor intensive and requires a lot of moving parts, because first that initial sample has to be a sample that was saved And there has to be sufficient quantity of virus on that specimen collection piece for some of those confirmatory pieces. But that's one of the ways that we're contributing to making that determination.
Are we getting any closer to giving those individuals credit for having recovered from this virus?
So we do within the 90 days. So individuals who are asymptomatic because of what we know about the risk of reinfection from COVID-19, if they're asymptomatic within 90 days of first infection, if they become exposed again, they do not, and they don't have symptoms of COVID, just like just as we would for fully vaccinated folks in that situation, as long as they don't have symptoms, they don't have to quarantine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't have anything, so thank you for your time this morning, guys.
Thank you.
Move on to item 2, homeless strategies. Keely Marino.
Good morning, Keely Marino from Public Health and Social Services. Just starting off with our usual report on how things are going in the rent assistance program. So CAC has currently served 202,643 households. Of those households, 1,297 of those are households with children. They've sent out $18.4 million in rent assistance and utility assistance, about $882,000. Nearly 60% of those households that are being served are less than 30% area median income. So really reaching those families and households who are in great need. CYS is holding steady at 94 households of young people between the ages of 18 and 24 being served. And have spent out $719,000 in rent assistance at this time. In other news, the only other thing I have to report is that we will be postponing the town hall that was scheduled for this Thursday, the 14th, from 5:30 to 6:30, and we are anticipating that meeting to be I can't think of the word. Scheduled. That's the word I'm looking for, at the early part of November. And that's all I have for you today.
Commissioner Mejia,
No questions. Thank you, Keely.
Commissioner Edwards.
Yes, why was that meeting? Oh, sounds like I'm getting an answer here from the county manager. I want to know why it was postponed.
Yeah, trying to anticipate your question, Commissioner.
Okay.
I figured probably that was a good question. We needed to align the different steps that we need to take in relation to the emergency housing ordinance and the deviations from the code. So there's a couple of instances in which we need to make the public available formally for 2 weeks consecutively prior to having this town hall meeting. So delaying this was probably prudent just to make sure that we align the timelines with the requirements of the ordinance. That is the reason why we rescheduled this.
Okay. Keely, do you know the dollar amount that we're at as far as dedicating to the homeless situation now? Are you up on that at all?
To the entire homeless crisis response system?
Yeah, the whole thing that we as the county have been, whether it's pass through or tax money or, filing fees, whatever it is. I think we're around $10 million, but I don't know that exactly.
We did award around $8 million this year in our request for proposal process, our granting process. And if there are other funds that have come through to support the homeless crisis response system that were COVID related. And I see Tom is on here, so if you want specific numbers, he might be able to be more specific. But
No,
I think
fine.
you're okay.
Just roughly, I was wondering. And one final thing, we've got a new homeless camp started over here by the exit on 101 coming into the courthouse. Are you folks aware of it? It looks like a trash pit already. It looks like there's 1 or 2 people there with a lot of garbage around. And I would hope that we could do something about that. Make it a little uncomfortable for that individual to be trespassing on the freeway property. So have you been notified of that? Are you aware of it?
No, I am not aware of it, but I can reach out to our partners and see if anyone is already working with that individual. And I don't know if that's City of Olympia, but I'll reach out to my counterparts in City of Olympia.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Keely. Next is a review of this afternoon's proposed agenda. Meeting will be called to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Edwards. Consideration of agenda and board meeting minutes. We have two presentations. One is Emergency Services Proclamation for Flood Awareness Week. I do see Kurt Harden here. I don't know if there's anything that needs to be said. I think we addressed this last week.
That is correct, sir. For you to consider proclaiming the week of October 18th through October 22nd, 2021 as a Flood Awareness Week in Thurston County. You discussed this last week, and I believe this afternoon Kurt is going to walk you through the details of this proclamation.
Okay, any questions for Kurt?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Kurt, anything you need to tell us?
No, I think the county manager summed it up well, and I will be there this afternoon.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is a recognition of Elks Lodge 186. Amy, is that script somewhere that I'm going to be able to find it?
Yeah, we'll provide it.
For the 2 p.m. meeting.
Yeah, and I think it was a couple of comments by Commissioner Edwards. I think those have been incorporated. And I will just introduce the subject, and I believe you, as the chair, Commissioner Messer, will read the acknowledgement. That is somewhat of a parallel to the proclamation, and I believe that is the conversation the board had related to this request.
And are we having, I guess this question for Amy, are we having a guest from that organization that would be present?
Yes, there are 3 members from the Elks Lodge who plan to attend in person this afternoon.
I guess I'll just invite them if they wanted to say a few words. And then we'll just have a recognition and then we'll move along. We won't have, reading out a long proclamation. Okay, we'll see how that goes. Opportunity for the public to address the, I do need to see that final draft because I never saw the final draft with the edit. So I'd like to see that well in advance of 2. Thank you. Public to address the board, county manager's update. Anything there, Ramiro?
Yeah, I'm sure you will receive public testimony this afternoon. And not necessarily anything specific, but we have been receiving testimony in some of the different items. And I really don't have any specific follow-up this afternoon as related to previous public comments. I believe I have addressed most of the comments you have received in the last couple of weeks.
Okay, anything from the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, let's look at our consent agenda. There are 7 items proposed. 3A is the resolution for updated telework policy.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. You reviewed this item last week, and you decided to move to this week's for consideration. And you asked to be a little more, provide a little more clarification related to those employees who are currently working out of state. So attached in your packet, I included a copy of the teleworking policy. If you move to page number 3, the footnote addresses that, I believe, the concerns the board had. Also, HR Director Maria Ponte sent a copy of this language to you via email, so you have enough time to review it. But let me read this to you. On the teleworking agreement, and you were concerned about the specific item 5G. And the 5G includes, as stated, due to the emergent business needs and other extraordinary circumstances, an appointed authority may approve a current employee to telework outside of Washington State for up to 30 days in a calendar year. Upon adoption of this policy, new permanent telework agreements with out-of-state employees will not be permitted. You see a little bit footnote in there, number 1, and the footnote states, for employees residing outside of the state of Washington who are authorized to telework prior to the adoption of this policy, the county is evaluating the actions that need to be taken to comply with tax and employment law requirements in the state jurisdiction where an employee resides. This includes, but not limited to, requirements such as registering as a business, remitting taxes, payroll, hiring compensations, and wage hour, health benefits, health and safety workers' compensation, workplace posting, employment, and required notices upon termination. So I believe that addresses, from my point of view, the concerns the board had related to this particular element. So if with your concurrence, we can probably continue to have this item before you this afternoon, if you agree with this plan, which will add that as a footnote.
Commissioner Mejia, any questions?
No, that footnote looks good.
I
I
know,
think
sir.
there's a, Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Okay. I think you've got the end of a parenthesis and no front of a parenthesis at the
No,
tail end of the footnote.
good
So,
eye, good eye. We'll eliminate that and we'll have this included on the policy.
Maria, are we good on your end?
Yes, if that addresses all of your concerns, then I will send this out countywide. There's a lot of people that have been waiting on this policy, so this is a great step forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, then it'll be consent item 3A. 3B is reappointment to the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee.
You reviewed this appointment last week and you provided direction to have this on your agenda for this afternoon. And this is to reappoint Ms. Carrie LaRue to the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee as a tax collecting member. And the term will be from October 1st, 2021 to October 1st, 2024.
Questions, concerns from the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Go to items 3C, which is actually the next 4 items are appointments or reappointments to Veterans Advisory Board. And the first is Heather Miles. Second is Liza Narciso. Third is Matthew Hewitt. And the fourth is William Powell. Any questions on the board on those reappointments or appointments?
No, sir.
I don't remember Lisa Narciso. I remember Heather Miles and William Powell and Matthew Hewitt, but maybe I just missed it.
It was reappointed for
Yeah.
Ms. Narciso.
Okay.
Chair, I guess I might have one question. Do we meet the requirements of the law that's laid out? Maybe that's to Amy, I guess, as to, do they belong to a nationally recognized body? I just want to make sure we get it right.
Yes, they do.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're good on those appointments. Then the item 3G is the auditor voucher list. Any questions from the board for staff?
No, sir.
No.
Okay. Then we'll go to department items. 4A is Public Health and Social Services Interagency Agreement Amendment for the Cdvg CV2 contract.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. You reviewed this item last week. And this is a little bit different. The board is familiar with the Cdvg, that would be the Community Development Grant Program. As you discussed last week, the normal program that we have when we receive Cdvg funding has an rotation basis. We take as an urban county allocations from the Housing and Urban Development Department, and that includes the cities of Lacey, Tumwater, and all the south cities, excluding the city of Olympia. And the approach we currently have on the normal, the Cdvg grant, each year we go about and it rotates between the city of Lacey, the city of Tumwater, and then the south cities along with the county. This is a little bit different. This is an allocation under the Coronavirus Relief Fund. The state of Washington received an allocation of Cdvg CV2, a little bit different than the normal Cdvg. And this has been provided to the county to fund and support the operations of a quarantine and isolation facility. The amount for this particular allocation is $340,752. This particular action is for you to consider approving the director to accept this grant and for us to continue to support the isolation and quarantine efforts that we have for those individuals who don't have the option to isolate and quarantine at their own homes. This contract goes from April 1st, 2021 and will be going through June 30th, 2023. And Tom Webster is here to answer any questions.
Questions for Tom on this item? Commissioner Mejia?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
Just a short question, I guess, Tom. Normally we get input from those affected entities, and has that been done? I mean, is everybody in agreement on this?
Yeah, so early on in the process, we did convene with kind of jurisdictions when we were making decisions on using these COVID-related funds. These funds, because they're coming from the state for various reasons, we are using them on activities that were previously identified as part of a regional process. I'll also add that a portion of these funds we also intend to award to the Thurston County Food Bank. Food services was one of the priority activities that the regional group recommended. So in addition to the quarantine and isolation facility, these funds will also provide some funding to the Thurston County Food Bank.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Tom. Item 4B, also under Public Health and Social Services, is amendment to Interfaith Works contract for 3444 Martin Way.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. Back last year, on October 27, 2020, the Board of County Commissioners approved $600,000 of funding using a combination of local document recording fees as well as the Coronavirus Relief Fund to support Interfaith Works to purchase a property in Olympia to construct a 5,000 square foot temporary structure to be used as an emergency shelter for a single adult experiencing homelessness. As we have been experienced not just on our construction projects, the whole construction industry is facing delays related to supply chain as well as just the labor force is extremely tight. As a result, the cost of any project is facing increases. So this particular request of $182,560 from the local document recording fees is specifically to address the cost increases this particular projects and Interfaith Works has experienced. Interfaith Works presented this proposal to the Regional Housing Council at its September 2021 meeting, and the Regional Housing Council recommended to the Board of County Commissioners for you to approve this request. And again, this request is for an additional $182,560, and that will come from the local document recording fees, and that will be a total contract to Interfaith Works for $1,169,407. Tom is also here to answer any questions.
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Okay, and this was the, I'm looking back at my notes, this was the chunk that was coming out of our emergency set-aside funding.
That is correct.
Okay. Yep, I remember. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Then item 5, next is Public Works, item 5A, setting a public hearing for water and sewer construction and materials standards updates.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. The Public Works staff briefed the board on a couple of occasions. And the last one was on September 1st, 2021, after the staff went out and get some public comments on between June 1st, 2021 and June 3rd, 2021. And as a result of that briefing, you asked the Department of Public Works to go ahead and submit a request to set a public hearing, in this case for November 2nd, 2021 at 3 p.m, for you to receive public testimony related to proposed changes related to sewer systems, water rates, and fees. In this particular case, it's really related to the standards that we have currently on in our business. So in the last time those standards were revised was back in 2007. So I think it's very timely for the board to consider public testimony and update those standards. And I believe Public Works staff is here. That would be Tori. If you have any questions.
Anything else we need to know, Torin?
No, that was a great summary. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for staff?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, me neither. Thank you. 5B this afternoon, also setting a public hearing for updates to the Thurston County Water and Sewer Utility Codes.
So this is related to the previous item, but separate. And along the same lines is for you to consider setting a public hearing for November 2nd, 2021 at 3 p.m, for you to consider taking public testimony related to proposed changes to Thurston County Code Chapter 15.09 through 15.12. And this is also related to sewer and water systems. So it's two things. The standards on the previous item will be revised after the public hearing, and the code amendments needs to align to the revisions of the standards. And this is the item for your consideration as well.
Questions on this item? Commissioner Mejia?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, any public input that's come in during that month period that you were kind of soliciting input?
Between June and June 30th,
Yeah.
I don't think we have any specific public input.
Okay.
Do you concur with that, Tori?
That is correct. We only had some minor internal input that was pretty much just some language errors that were easy to fix and didn't really change anything. So that's about it, though.
Nothing out of the Grand Mound area, or that's what I was wondering about.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That'll take care of 5B. County manager section will involve commissioner reports and commissioners' combined schedule. We'll move to adjourn and then head straight into the Board of Health. Unless we get done before 3:30, then we all have a break. But the Board of Health will start at 3:30 or shortly thereafter if we need the extra time for the board meeting.
Excuse me, Chair, can I go back on something and ask a clarifying question?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Go ahead.
you. I appreciate it. Ramiro, can I just ask a little bit more of clarification on why the hearing was postponed? Wouldn't an emergency declaration, I mean, that's in place, couldn't that take care of that?
We thought it was, but no, the public notice was not part of the emergency deviation. So, and that's really the public notice is key.
Okay.
And that is why we delayed that to make sure that we take the right steps. You're right. It would my assumption was that under the emergency ordinance we can just move ahead with the application. But we found out this past Friday that that was not the case.
Okay.
Is that because of the way the emergency interim ordinance itself is drafted, or is it something that's kind of overlapping that it's not affected by the emergency ordinance?
I believe it's the latter, Commissioner. The emergency ordinance, it really addresses some of the code related to this particular, what are called deviations from the current code. But the ordinance did not address deviations from the public notice.
Okay, I got you. Okay, does that answer your question, Commissioner Mejia?
Does.
Okay, let's look then at the Board of Health agenda that's proposed for 3:30 this afternoon. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll review the agenda and meeting minutes from September 14th meeting. We will have a proclamation for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I see Shelley and Gretchen are back. Shelley's back and Gretchen's with us on that. Go ahead. And Shelley, I'll turn this to you.
Yes, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and Gretchen Toller, our maternal child health manager, will be presenting this item and welcoming guests at our virtual meeting today, including Nicole Woolsey, who is representing American Cancer Society and has about 7 other people that will be joining her on this, and they will share a little bit about what they do and join us in recognizing those who have lost their lives to breast cancer and sharing information on how we can all prevent breast cancer. And Gretchen, I don't know if you have anything else you would like to add to that.
No, thank you for saying that, Shelley. I was just going to note that it looked like there was about 3 or 8 guests. So I will just speak shortly to it and hand it over to our guests so they have plenty of time.
Okay, any questions from the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, then we'll have an opportunity for the public to address the Board of Health. We will then go to department items, and the first is a presentation of Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization, or BHASO. Is this going to be from Joe Avalos, Shelley, or?
Yes, Joe Avalos, as well as I believe Mark Friedman, will be joining us for this meeting today and providing an overview on the BHASO, as well as Olympic Recovery Services and the current state of behavioral health in our community and recent changes in our systems.
Okay, and hopefully the board, the idea is to kind of bring the Board of Health up to date on the transition. We had the transition out of the BHO system to the managed care organizations. Then we had legislative changes this past year. We had changes, we're all pretty familiar with the law enforcement stuff, but other changes to behavioral health, the closing of Western State. I mean, there's been, in the time I've been on the board, it seems like behavioral health has evolved, and it's complicated to me, and I'm sitting on the board of the BHASO, and it seemed like a good time for the Board of Health and the public to hear kind of an overview of where the system stands and where there may still be, where gaps have been filled and where gaps still remain. So that's kind of the idea, and if commissioners could gear questions to those kind of, to that's kind of what we're trying to accomplish here at this presentation. So any questions about that?
No, I know this is a committee that you and Commissioner Edwards sit on. And so I met with them separately just to kind of learn about the organization, and I learned so much. So I'm really looking forward to this presentation.
Yeah, it's hard to, you can never hear it too many times, has been my experience. Commissioner Edwards, anything?
No, sir.
Okay. The next department item is presentation of communicable diseases. Presentation regarding communicable diseases.
Yes, we will be joined today by one of our amazing community health nurses who works in our disease control and prevention division, Maddie Smith. And she'll share an overview on what our department's role is in investigating various communicable diseases, what our processes are, what people can do to protect themselves from infectious diseases in our community. And that sums up that item.
Any questions from the board on this item?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. Then we'll report on health-related activities from the board, health officer's report, director's report. Anything you need to tell us this morning, Shelley?
No, sir.
Okay. Then let's move along because we've got a lot on our agenda this morning. Next, we'll be looking at the proposed agenda for next Tuesday's board meeting, October 19th, 2021. Calling the meeting to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Mejia. Looking at the agenda and meeting minutes from today. Presentation from the auditor, Proclamation for Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners, for your consideration is to proclaim October 2021 as a Cyber Awareness Month in Thurston, Cybersecurity Awareness Month here in Thurston County. I believe Tilly from the auditor's office is here. I saw her name. I know she'd like to provide additional perspective on this proclamation or not. Tilly?
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm actually here to be a support for the redistricting conversation. I do know that the auditor is excited about this, and we're happy that the Commissioners will be acknowledging Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Okay. Thank you, Tilly. Any questions from the board?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll have an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update. Anything there, Ramiro?
No, I will follow up with any comments we may receive this afternoon if they need to be followed up.
Only 2 consent items on the proposed agenda. The first is Human Resources resolution setting benefit contributions for 2022.
Yes, Commissioners, on September 30th, HR provided with a briefing related to the medical insurance, and in which staff provided with a recommendation as to what will be the base medical insurance related to the benefits that we're going to be providing county employees in the upcoming year. So this particular request is for you to pass a resolution setting the 2022 benefit package and dependent contributions for all Thurston County employees. This is a yearly process that we need to go through because right now we have a schedule to have the enrollment for county employees to have the opportunity to enroll in new programs as well as to change some of the benefits they have. And that will be from November 1st, 2021 through November 30th, 2021. And I believe Maria is still online. Do you have any questions? No, that's it.
Questions for Maria or HR?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. Yep, that was pretty straightforward. Let's look at B. B is just the voucher list, which we will receive later this week. So community planning and economic development is 4A, setting a public hearing for renewal of ordinance 15792.
Yes, Commissioner. You discussed this item last week. That will be October 1st, 2021 during your agenda setting. And this is related to the interim housing ordinance. This interim ordinance was first established on June 25th, 2019 under ordinance number 15792. These interim regulations were renewed on June 9th, 2020 under ordinance number 15902, followed by a renewed and amended ordinance on December 9, 2020, and renews amended again on June 9, 2021 with ordinance 16026. This current ordinance 16026 is set to expire on December 9, 2021. And they will provide the direction for submit an AIS and this item for you to consider setting a public hearing for your consideration to extend the emergency housing ordinance. And this public hearing is set for November 23rd, 2021 at 3 in the afternoon. I see Maya is here. She provided additional perspective last week, and she's available to answer any questions today.
Okay, public hearing, Commissioner Mejia.
No questions on this.
Commissioner Edwards.
No, sir.
Okay, me neither. Let's go to coroner item 5A, resolution for purchase of portable x-ray machine. And I see the coroner's with us. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, everybody.
Okay.
Good morning, Gary.
Go
Good
ahead,
morning,
Go ahead,
Commissioners.
Ramiro.
This is the next step in the process, and this goes back to last year when the board authorized the purchase of an X-ray machine for the coroner's office. The coroner's office provided a perspective since then that perhaps that equipment that he was envisioning at some point was too large. They didn't fit within the existing building that he currently occupies. So he went through a due diligence really as to what will be the best possible equipment that meets his needs as well as fits within the current space. So this particular action for you is to consider to approve a resolution authorizing the coroner to purchase this X-ray machine for an approximate cost of $62,595 plus tax and shipping. Gary, anything to add on this?
No, you summarized it pretty well, Ramiro. Thank you. The reason for the initially it was going to be a CT machine, but our footprint, our real estate isn't big enough to accommodate that. So that's why we reduced it down to a portable X-ray machine.
Any questions, Commissioner Mejia?
I have no questions on this. I think we've discussed this quite a bit.
Yep,
Commissioner
no
Evans?
questions. We've covered it. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Let's go to 6A, Emergency Services Joint Funding Agreement with U.S. Department of Interior for Water Resources Investigations.
The title seems a little bit interesting, but you may recall this item. This is related to the stream flow and precipitation gauges that we have under the chutes in the Commerce rivers. And this is in coordination with the USGS. And that will help us to, again, measure the stream flows and the precipitation. And this is an ongoing contribution that we contribute for the maintenance of those gauges. The total cost at this point for the continuation of the services from October 1st, 2021 through September 30, 2022 is for $21,416. And that is a split between emergency services, who pays $15,116, and CPED, $5,500. Both are included on the current budget, and for you considerations to continue this partnership with USGS and maintaining those gauges on the rivers, again, the chutes and Skumchak. Kurt?
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Harden, Director of Emergency Services. And as the County Manager said, this is a recurring contract and agreement that we have with the Department of Interior, USGS. However, this year they retitled it, and we're not quite sure why, but the scope of work is exactly the same as in previous years.
Commissioner Mejia, questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Kurt, I was on the Chehalis River. We have a gauge system that we manage through the Chehalis River Basin Flood Authority at a local level. I'm wondering, why is the federal government involved in these and not those? What is the?
I'm not quite sure why they would be involved in these, not those. So we can try. I can make an attempt to find out and get you that information.
Okay, I was just curious, but just wondering what's their interest in the Deschutes and Skookumchuck that's not there in the Chehalis. Okay, thank you.
We'll find out.
Then we'll go to Public Health and Social Services, 7A, Amendment 1 for Dshs Ejass Access Agreement, if I'm saying that right.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. We currently have an agreement with the Department of Social and Health Services with the state. They will allow limited access to their web-based electronic jobs automated system, also known as Ejass. Public Health and Social Services is subcontracting through the Department of Children, Youth, and Families to receive referrals via Ejass for home visiting services in association with the Nurse Family Partnership. The Gretchen Fowler leads that effort. The information obtained is used for the purpose of referrals, tracking, and monitoring caseloads, program policies, and client participation. This particular amendment does not include any dollar amounts. This is just an extension of the current contract. They will go from November 1st, 2021 through October 31st, 2023. And again, this amendment is to allow access to the database the state maintains, known as Ejass. Gretchen?
Thank you, Romero. Yes, this is an extension of that contract that we've had for, I'd say, probably 6 years now. Under our Department of Children, Youth, and Families contract, which I came for, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, we serve TANF families. And so the Ejass system allows for communication between the Department of Social and Health Services and the NFP program to make referrals and to get additional information. So, and zero funding attached to it.
Commissioner Mejia, any questions?
No questions in regards to this.
No question.
All right, me either. Thank you, Gretchen.
Thank you.
Let's stay with public health for 7B, setting a public hearing for the 2020 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report.
Thank you, Commissioners. As you are aware, the county receives the Community Development Block Grants, Cdvg, as well as the Home Investment Partnership Program, also known as HOME funds, and that on a yearly basis. And that is, we received that from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. One of the requirements from HUD is for you to take public testimony related to the Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, also known as CAPER. So this particular item is for you to set a public hearing for November 16, 2021 at 3 in the afternoon. For you to take public testimony related to the Annual Performance Evaluation Report. It goes from September 1st, 2020 through August 31st, 2021. This is a yearly event that we go through this process, and this is a requirement by HUD, again, for receive public testimony in this performance report. I see Jacinda or maybe Tom. Do you have any questions? Maybe not.
So, Romero, off the top, aren't we going to be at the WASAC conference that day?
November 16, good call. Thank you. We'll revise that for next week. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the board on this item?
No, sir.
Okay. Then we'll go to item 8, Public Works 8A, interlocal agreement with Intercity Transit for transit signal priority. Becky Kahn from Public Works?
Yeah. Hi.
Okay, I see Matt's name here, but we got Becky.
Sorry.
All right, good morning.
Yeah, Commissioners, this particular item is for you to consider enter into an agreement with the Intercity Transit. Intercity Transit received a federal grant to install equipment both on their buses as well as some of the traffic signals the county maintains to have a priority system when they move through the roadways, also known as a preemption. As you may probably see sometimes when a bus approaches a red light on a particular intersection, it preempts in order for that particular signal to turn green, so avoiding the idling of buses at the intersection. This is a good approach. I think Intercity Transit has taken the right steps to reduce the gas emissions as a result of the operations. And this particular agreement allows for Intercity Transit to pay for the additional equipment that will be installed in county-owned traffic signals to accommodate for that preemption related to buses. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a great explanation. Just a little clarity. The federal funds are all through Intercity Transit. So it's not on our side that Intercity Transit is fully managing those funds, and we're just assisting them in allowing that that equipment to go into our signal boxes at our lights. Any other questions? I'd be happy.
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, 8B, resolution for temporary closure of Country Club Road Northwest at Green Cove Creek.
Commissioner, this is an emerging issue. Public Works has realized that we have a culvert on the Country Club Road Northwest that needs to be addressed on an emergency basis. And this particular proposal is for you to consider closing this portion of Country Club Road from October 23rd through November 30, 2021. And that will allow the contractor, Public Works Department, to go ahead and do a temporary fix of this culvert. There is no need for a detour because this is a loop road. So members of the public who live nearby, they will not be pretty much affected other than just going around the loop. And I emphasize this a temporary fix because next week on your agenda in the morning, we'll give you additional perspective as to the steps the department is planning to take to this temporary fix and perhaps the long-term fix that might be coming next year. Marcus?
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. Marcus Storvik, Civil Engineer with Public Works. I would definitely defer to the presentation that the County Engineer would be giving next week, as the County Manager had pointed out. But to reiterate, for this agenda item, the road closure would be for a 3-week period, at the very earliest starting October 23rd, and perhaps if it doesn't start a little after that, at least ending by the end of November, for us to get in safely and quickly to at least do the temporary fix.
Scott, anything you need to add?
No, I think the County Manager, Marcus, summed it up fairly well. I think one thing that in the presentation I'll provide next week, one of the things that we are requesting this somewhat longer closure for is, as we all know, the month of November is typically a very, very wet month for us, and all of the work that we'll be doing for this temporary fix is within the stream itself. So we're asking for a fairly large window. We do believe the work for the temporary fix will get done in a shorter period of time, at which point we can reopen the road, but we're trying to give us as much flexibility as we can during this. I just looked, I think it's typically the wettest month of each year. So, and I'll certainly provide more information next year, which give you a bit more perspective of the issue we're looking at and kind of our plan to move forward, both with the interim fix and then the long-term replacement.
Commissioner Mejia?
Have we made contact with, I didn't hear this part, I apologize if you already said it. Did we make contact with the people who live around the area just to let them know, and have we received comment on that?
Yeah, we did reach out and got a hold. There are 3 property owners that are near the site. We reached out to one and received, or are in the process of receiving permission to go onto their property, and we're in the process of reaching out to the other 2 at this point.
Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, is there any opportunity to do a little salmon enhancement work? And we have to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the key things about this culvert, and I'll certainly be filling you in more next week. But Green Cove Creek watershed is a highly valuable and cherished resource we have in the northwest part of the county. When we do our permanent replacement, which we expect to do by 2024, it will certainly meet all the latest fish passage standards. And as the county manager said, this is definitely an emerging issue. And I believe it was about 2 weeks ago, or just a couple of weeks ago, it first came to our attention. So it's an evolving thing. And we've one of the things I do want to highlight is it's really been able to take advantage of our on-call consultant roster. So we've already started meeting with consultants on that roster to come up with a alternative analysis. We expect to get that scope done this week. So that's really enabled us to get about a month lead time on this project. So it's been a wonderful tool to have at our disposal.
And the funding mechanism on that, Scott, where's that coming from?
Well, the repairs this year will come out of our road operations budget. And at this point, we don't know what the permanent fix will cost. That's one of the things we'll be coming up with as part of this alternative analysis. So once we get a handle on what that will be, we'll be in a better position to really figure out where that funding might come from.
any chance that we could become eligible for some other funding other than out of our own emergency fund due to the unique circumstance?
Yeah, absolutely. And because this is a highly cherished watershed, we will be leaving no stone unturned in our effort to look for other money. Whether there's other money out there, I really don't know, but we will definitely be pursuing every opportunity we can to look for additional funding.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm looking at the map at this area, and the folks who live, so this is west of Cooper Point Road, and the folks who live just beyond the creek closure, will they just have to reroute like 36th up Biscay and kind of go all the way around to detour to reach their properties? Because this is
Correct.
residential.
And I believe Marcus looked at that, and I think it might add a 3 or 4 minute to reach people's houses during the closure. Is that correct?
That's correct. So if you would consider the last house just right next to the creek, that's a maximum of 4 minute additional travel time.
Okay. Okay, very good. Any other questions? Sounds like we're good there. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8C is to set a public hearing for update to Thurston County water and sewer rates.
Yeah.
Not code update, rate update.
Rate updates, yes. And staff briefed the board on June 2021 related to propose rate changes to sewer and water utilities that we have in place. And it will be affecting the Boston Harbor as well as the Townshend utility committees have already briefed on their sort of committed adjustments, and that has already been taken care of, and they supported of this proposed changes. And also during the June 2021 briefing, we directed staff to bring an item for you to set a public hearing, for you to receive public testimony prior to you considering changing the sewer and water rates in some of the utilities that we have in the county. This item is for your considerers to set for November 9, 2021 at 5 in the afternoon or soon thereafter.
I see Tim's here. Any questions from the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. And let's look at the next item, D. 8D is to set a public hearing for rate increases for Long Lake Management District and Lake Lawrence Management District.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. You also received some briefing related to the proposed increases on the lake management districts for Long Lake as well as Lawrence Lake. Under the respective resolutions, they allow for an annual increase for up to 5% of their fees for those members within those districts. This particular proposal is for you to receive public testimony to increase the rates for 2023. The rate increases for 2022, the Board of County Commissioners already approved that under resolutions 15963 and 15965. And again, this is for 2023. Both the Lone Lake Steering Committee as well as the Lawrence Lake Steering Committee recommended this particular proposal, and both are supportive of the 5% annual increase, which is the maximum allowed within the resolution of incorporation. Tim?
Okay. Any questions on this item for Tim?
Yes, I have one.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
For some reason, I thought there was some kind of a recommendation for a 1% and a 3%, but maybe I've got that confused with
That was
something
for
else.
2022. That's what preliminary recall. Tim, I think that the different percentage was for 2022, correct?
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. That's exactly right. It was a 1% for Lake Lawrence, I believe, in 2021, and 3% for Long Lake.
for 2022, which the board approval already does recommendations.
But they're both groups now are opting for a 5%. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tim. We're good there. Commissioners will report on board work sessions, et cetera. County manager review the schedule, and that will wrap
Commissioner,
Tuesday, October 19th.
Commissioner, there is one item that I'd like to give you a heads up. It might be coming for your attention next week, which is not included on this agenda, is for you to consider authorizing the signing of the contract with the administrator of the courts. It is related to the Blake decision, where we're going to be receiving some money associated with the impact of the Blake decision. So we currently have that contract being reviewed by the prosecuting attorney. So you will see an item related to this item next week. I'd just like to give a heads up on that.
Potential add to 1019 agenda.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, we can take that up.
I think it's 1.2 million, I recall well, Robin.
Sounds right, but I'd have to look it up.
Okay, thereabouts.
And that's for LFO funds, or is that for administrative?
The contract, it's a single contract for both the admin and the LFO funding. Those amounts have to be kept separate, but they are putting it in a single contract. They are not limiting the LFO payments to, they're not splitting it between the two courts. It's one single amount for us to work out how much we need between each court. There's no allocation to the cities any longer. So the attorneys have worked through all of the major issues at a state level and are recommending that we sign this. It's in final legal review. It's been reviewed by the offices and departments that are impacted to ensure that we can collect the appropriate data. Try to take all the steps.
So can I ask one more question? So how much are we getting specifically for LFOs and how much are we getting for admin?
So I can look that up for you.
Thank you.
While she is looking at the number, Commissioner, also you may recall the public defense receive an allocation outside of this. So this contract is outside of the public defense allocation.
About time.
Well, you will see on Thursday morning when we have the opportunity to talk with Deborah Magia, one of the proposed legislative items for you to consider is to continue to ask the state for a full refund or funding the impacts of the decisions. So,
have an estimate of how much that is?
You've had a little bit of a taste of how much that is from the clerk's office.
Yeah.
Just related to the LFOs, if I recall well, it was close to $6 million with some of the reductions that she has gotten. Significant.
Wasn't it like statewide? It was kind of like they gave us like 80 million, and that was about half of what WASAC had kind of guesstimated. So I think it was more like 150 plus million that they were thinking.
Yeah.
It might have gone upward since then, but that was their initial. And then the legislature gave about half of what had been requested.
Yeah, that is correct, sir.
Okay.
So the amount of the contract for Thurston County is just a little under 2.8 million for the administrative costs and 901,000 for LFO reimbursements.
I'm not sure who's managing tech today, but your room mic has gone kind of haywire, and I don't think the public and myself are having trouble hearing the voices.
Both, all the voices in the boardroom, Commissioner?
Yeah, I mean, yours got quieter, and then Robin's is kind of garbled, and it's really difficult to hear. So I don't know if there's a way to turn that up or take a look at it just to make sure. It just happened like on this last item.
Megan's going to look into it. Thank you.
Make sure you're also speaking out instead of down.
She's telling me to make sure that I raise my hand.
So I'm gonna look down but speak up. The the administrative portion of the AOC agreement to cover Blake costs is $2,766,700 to be precise. And the LFO reimbursement amount, $901,472. So those are the shares that the county will receive from AOC under the current state appropriation. Plus, as Romero said, we have, we received and have spent $69,000 from the Office of Public Defense and received an additional, I think, $240,000 a year from the Office of Public Defense, specifically for public defense.
Could you hear that all right, Commissioner Mensah?
With effort, 901,000 for LFOs and 2 something million for admin. Is that, or is that the total?
Roughly 2.8 for admin.
And then we had the PD money, you said, and also another piece for something. I didn't catch what that last 200,000.
Also public defense.
Okay.
The public defense allocation was not 200,000, Commissioner, it was about 67,000.
No, there's an additional.
An additional, okay.
Yeah, 240 in each of the next 2 years.
Yeah, it was about 300,000, total, something.
Either 240 or 260 each year for 2 years.
To address Blake
Yes, specifically.
case processing.
Yes.
Okay. So where does that, I got lost here. Where did that issue come up from?
Commissioner, you will see an item related to this for you to consider authorizing the contract with the.
Oh, right. You were previewing something that might get added to the.
It's not included in this, on this version of the agenda, but you will see an item next week.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking around and I wasn't remembering where we were on the paper. So we just completed item 5, which is the review of the 19th agenda. So we'll just have a few more items and we'll take a break. Let's do proclamations and awards.
Good morning, Amy Davis, Clerk of the Board. The Flood Awareness Week proclamation for this afternoon is included in your packet, as well as the Cybersecurity Awareness Month proclamation for next week. The auditor and IT director will be present to jointly accept that. Again, there will be 3 members from the Elks Lodge who plan to attend in person this afternoon to hear the recognition for their 130th anniversary.
Okay. Any questions from the board on proclamations and awards?
No.
Okay. Item 7 is advisory boards and commissions.
Yes, we have 2. The first is revisiting Johanna's application for reappointment for the Agriculture Advisory Committee. Mr. Hanna resides in District 1 and is currently sitting as the acting chair. If you had a chance to review his application and have no questions or concerns, we can include his reappointment on this week's agenda or next week's agenda, whichever is preferred.
Commissioner Mejia?
Okay. I have no questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Just to remind, I think, okay, yeah, I've got the roster here. I'm just trying to remind myself, we still have a vacant position. We have, okay, so Mr. Hanna, if he got reappointed, then we'd still have the position 7, and we don't have applications for that. Is that correct, Amy?
Correct, yes.
And that's okay. Okay. Yeah, I spoke with Mr. Hanna by phone last week, so I go over his application, so we can. The proposal is what, to put it on next week's consent agenda?
Yes.
If the board needs more time to review this application, but it's not, if not, I would like to see what the board like to do with this application. If there's a consensus, we can bring this item for your consideration next week.
I heard no objection to putting it on next week's agenda. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so you will see this item next week. Thank you, sir.
Okay, we also have one for Lodging Tax Advisory Committee.
Yes, the second is an application from Peggy Jo Zimmerman for the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee as a potential fund applicant member. Last week, we reviewed another application for LTAC and discussed the concern of having a quorum for the committee to meet twice as required by RCW prior to the end of the year. So again, staff's recommendation is to include this appointment on next week's consent agenda, allowing the week for review so we can circle back next week with any questions or concerns.
Commissioner Mejia?
I do have questions. This is a reappointment, but I don't see her on the form.
I'm sorry, I listed it as a reappointment, but she would be a new member. She is applying for the second seat where Ann Shipley was listed.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I guess I get I don't know this board very well. And when you guys are talking about applicants and recipients and all that. So Ms. Zimmerman is on the Fair Board. Does that mean that she says, her first sentence says, I currently serve on the Fair Board, which is a recipient of LTAB funds. Does that mean that she has a particular qualification because she's part of a group that gets some of these funds? So
Yes.
okay,
Yeah,
so
and I'm sure she meant LTAC rather than B, it's the LTAC. But yes, you have to have two people who are part of applicant organizations and two people who are part of businesses that collect the tax. That's the way the law is written. State law.
okay, well, I didn't, for what it's worth, I know Ms. Zimmerman, and she's a good member of our Fair Board. So, and if she has this particular qualification that we need, it sounds like that would be a good thing to get her going on there. If that's a hard one to fill, I don't know. But the board can take time on that if they need it.
I don't need any time.
I'm okay with moving forward.
Okay, so we'll put both of those then on for next week.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question for Amy in regards to advisory boards and commissions. Sorry, Amy.
No.
So I remember looking at the handbook. Is it finalized? Has it gone out to the advisory boards and commissions?
It has not yet. I think we are still drafting the agenda, or I'm sorry, the resolution regarding the OPMA requirement, and to bring both of those items to you at one time.
Okay, thank you.
Let's go to, okay, if there's no other questions, we'll go to PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. The majority of my time has been spent on the Safe Parking Town Hall that was expected to happen on Thursday. You heard earlier from Keely that has been postponed, and we are expecting to reschedule it for early November. As a follow-up to that, with those who had already heard about it, we sent a follow-up letter to the property and business owners located within 1,000 feet of the site, noting that it was postponed. I've updated the Regional Housing Council's webpage to note the change, and this morning we are directly notifying those who had already registered for the town hall through Zoom. I also had a conversation with Rolf at the Olympian yesterday, and he ran a follow-up article yesterday afternoon noting that the meeting was postponed. And then I'm still accepting comments and questions. So if anyone has any comments they'd like to submit, they can send it to me. My email is noted on the letter and also on the website. So pending any questions, that's what I have this morning.
Questions for Megan on her report?
No, sir.
Yes, my only question is, did she fix the audio for you and the public?
I'm hearing the commissioners really well. Are you guys? Yeah, I'm hearing better. Yeah.
Okay, good job.
Okay, great. Thank you, Megan. I don't have anything. Let's go to item 9, briefing / public hearings decisions pending.
Nothing is pending, Commissioners.
Okay, then that'll bring us to item 10, Commissioner items. It's 10:22. We'll take a break to 10:35 and get going on our redistricting presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're picking up with item, it's 10:38 a.m. We're picking up in our agenda setting work session with item 10, sub 1, which is a presentation on commissioner redistricting. We have slides in our packets.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. You have a PowerPoint before you. Will go through that here in a minute. As a matter of a little bit of a background, the commissioners' boundaries needs to be updated soon after the census is done, which just happens every 10 years. There was an issue related to the 2020 census as to when we're going to be receiving that information. We provided you with a briefing back in June, outlining some of the constraints that we had within the data. Well, here we are, we've received the data, and we have been working in providing a recommendation to you as to how we are going to be achieving balancing the population, and that is, I believe, the main objective between the three county commissioner districts. Back in June, when we provided this information, we provided with a little bit of somewhat of a bubble, meaning the areas in which some of the adjustment could be made. And also the objective will be not to district out a sitting commissioner, and also not to district out any potential candidate they might be running for, in this case, court district and anything else. So all that has been taken into account. And also we work with the auditor's office to make sure they will be moving entire precincts. So we will not be splitting any specific precincts associated with this effort. So I will give the floor to Robin, and then I'm sure he's going to work with Jamie, as she's online. Jamie Caldwell is a staff member who has helped us in going through this coordination, and she will walk you through specifically how this proposal will achieve the objective of balancing the population among the other 2-3 objectives we have highlighted.
Okay.
With that in mind?
Thank you. So Commissioners, Romero gave a pretty good background, but I would like to direct your attention to page 4 of the PowerPoint that you have, and just very briefly restate what the strategy was for being able to complete redistricting timely this year. The strategy is to move whole precincts along the boundaries, to move the minimum number of precincts possible to meet the balance that's required, that we would prepare one single proposal that meets the criteria, that we would not move any elected official or a candidate out of their district, and that we would meet with stakeholders early to get this agreement on this approach, which Romero has done. So we are at a point now where we have the data, and I'm going to turn it over to Jamie to walk through what the proposed adjustments are in this option. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yep.
Did you ever get back the census data for population, and where are we at on that?
Yes, that's what we've been working with.
Okay, so what's our population currently in Thurston County?
294,500.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just short of 300,000. Just short of 300,000.
Do we still think we're gonna be able to hit that 300,000 in April from OFM?
And this is just my personal perspective. I believe so, because the 294,500 was in the summer of 2020. So in the county sees as a whole, just about an increase of 5,000 to 6,000 population every year.
Okay.
So we might be there. To that, we're working with Elizabeth right now in the Port of Olympia on that joint resolution, and that should be coming to your attention in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Thank you.
More to that. And And depending how this conversation goes with the board this morning, I myself will start reaching out to the Port of Olympia and as well as the PUD as well. And those are the two permissions they are waiting for this conversation to occur.
Take it, Jamie.
Can't hear you, Jamie.
You're on mute, Jamie.
She's not on mute. It does look like there's mute, no.
We cannot hear you, Jamie.
Uh-oh.
We'll have to log out and log back in.
Jamie, try logging out and logging back in.
The aggravations of technology.
Yes, truly.
Yep.
Ty, it looks like you're gonna get that little slice.
I am.
Yeah, on page 8.
I don't spoil it for me, Carolina. I've been waiting to savor the moment.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Sorry about that.
problem.
Would you prefer me to start by sharing my screen with you, or are the slides that you have sufficient?
Go ahead and share your screen, please.
Yeah, share your screen. It helps public follow along.
No problem. Give me just 1 second and I will bring it up. Can you see it now?
Yeah. Yes.
Perfect. So you should be looking at that initial map that you guys were shown where we were expecting the 2020 estimated population to be about 290,920. There were a couple focus areas that we were planning on sticking with moving the district or the precincts around in the districts to redo those district lines. The next slide, slide number 7, is just a digital version of that map. So once we got the actual numbers, so the grand total of the population there was 294,781. Approximately 32% of that was in District 1, 35% in District 2, and 32% in District 3. We went ahead and had our geodata team they highlighted these areas. These are the precinct areas where the commissioners, the PUD commissioners, the port commissioners, the candidates are all located so that you could see where everybody was laid out on the map so that when we actually went to move precincts, you can see that we're not actually moving anybody out of their district. When you go on to slide number 8 there, that is a zoomed in version of the focus areas that we wanted to move around. What we're proposing to shift around is going to be precinct number 80, which is right up here in the corner here. And then when we jump back down into the focus areas, it's going to be 307, 308, 309, 310, 311, 316, and 317. Those are going to shift from district, district 2 over into district 1. The only reason that District 80 up here is being proposed to be moved outside of those focus areas is because it was a specific request by our elections office. There's a very small number of voters in that precinct, and they wanted to shift it over into District 1 so that they can eventually combine it with another precinct. The next move would be to move precincts 219 and 243 from District 1 to District 3. So that would be these two right over here. Would then move from the this one over into this district here. And then the last one to kind of offset that move, because these precincts themselves are fairly densely populated, we're going to be moving District 67, which is this really tiny one that looks like it's within District 412. It would move from District 3 over into District 1. So once all those moves are done, the new boundary lines would look like they do on slide number 9 there. So you can see that 80 up here in the corner now belongs with District 1. Pardon me. And then the boundary lines didn't end up moving anybody out of their respective districts. They still lay with where they started at, essentially. Once we take a look at that as a whole on slide number 10, it would just be removing the focus areas, kind of zooming back out to show where those new district lines would be at. I'm sorry, precincts. I correct myself. I'm saying the wrong word. So we're moving the precincts. I apologize about that. So when we zoom back out, we take the focus areas off. You can see where the new boundary lines are because the precincts have been moved. Nobody's moved outside of their district. And you can see the graph that we've provided you there shows how many people ended up being moved out of which district and what the total percentage ended up being. We tried to get them as close to 33% as possible. In total, just over 3,500 people moved out of District 1 to level off that population percentage to be 33.27%. District 2 had just over 5,000 people move outside of it to bring its population total down to the 33.37%. And then District 3 gained just over 1,900 people to bring its population total to 33.36%. We did the best we could to move the exact number of people, which is very difficult because of the densely populated precincts in those areas. But our goal was to get each of those precinct population totals as close to 33% as possible.
And that's what we have for you. We'd be happy to answer any questions. I do want to say how much we appreciate the support we got from the auditor's office and from GIS. They helped us understand what we're doing and helped to make it work. And they also are here if you've got any questions that we're not able to answer.
Commissioner Mejia?
No, I'm just taking it all in.
Commissioner Edwards?
I guess the only thing I would ask is, we are now contemplating moving to 5 commissioner districts in the future. So did everything that was done kind of at least take that into consideration or think about it that we might be changing, and so we don't cause ourselves some grief by making a change where we're making them, which I've got no problem with. So that's my question.
Because that is such a drastic change, there's no way that we can account for that in this exercise.
We couldn't anticipate that. In that, although it is pending, but it's a parallel process. And if we get to the point of the board sending to the voters the 5 commissioner board, then the redistricting will take a totally different approach.
Okay,
yes,
that's fine. I just wondered about it.
Right.
Thank you.
So Jamie, you can stop sharing your screen, by the way. Any other questions?
67. Okay, so my question is, so 67 and 412 come to come out of District 3, and 412, I'm trying to remember, is 412 is a Tumwater district, is that right?
I'm going to default to probably the elections department for that because I am not positive. What I'm getting in my chat here is yes, it is.
But 67 is Olympia?
Hold on one second. That is an area of expertise that isn't mine. Lynn, are you available to jump on and answer their Commissioner Menser's question by chance?
Yes, I am. Hi, Commissioner Menser. So that's a county precinct. It's not a city precinct.
Okay. So I lose a Tumwater precinct and a county precinct. Okay. Okay, well, I got the numbers so I can look up the maps later. I just wanted to write, I saw them, they're written down here. So, okay. Looks pretty straightforward. Thank you for all that work.
So,
any questions, Ramiro? Go ahead.
No, if there's no any questions or concerns, so maybe outline the next steps in the process, commissioners. So the next step in the process is you need to set a public hearing for you to consider a public testimony related to this particular proposal. So with your consent, we'll bring an agenda item for you to consider setting a public hearing, and at the same time we'll start drafting an ordinance for you to consider after public testimony the changes on the commission of districts. Parallel to that, I will reach out to the Port of Olympia as well as the PUD, and I will schedule myself and staff to give similar presentations to them to give the opportunity to provide some feedback. But it's just in essence, it was pretty much the same on the initial presentation that I provided to both commissions. I will come back with the specifics, and these are the specifics. So,
one other thing we would like your permission to do is to release this information to the Washington State Committee on Redistricting so that they can take it into consideration as they draw the boundaries that they're responsible for.
You need thumbs up from the board?
yes, sir.
Seems like we got it.
Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you to Jamie. She has taken the lead on this, and I really appreciate all the coordination taking us to this point. So thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome. It took, I wouldn't have been able to get here without the elections auditor and our geodata team. They helped immensely.
Great, thank you.
West Olympia thanks you for reunifying us in District 3. We've been a house divided for too long. Okay, let's go then to item 10.2, potentially dangerous dog.
Yes, commissioners. This is as a matter of a little bit of a background, back in September 16, 2021, the board, considering the evidence presented to you, sent a letter to Mr. Cody Blackwell and Ms. Carissa Dawn, and related to their dogs, declaring potentially dangerous dogs based on the information you received from Ms. Janet Anderson back in July 2021. And that letter, and as per county code, the recipients of this particular potential designation of a potential dangerous dog, they had a 10-day by filing and requesting a public hearing for you to consider an appeal related to this particular proposal. That appeal was received within the 10 days by Ms. Carissa John, and they are requesting for you to have a hearing where you will have the opportunity to hear both parties before you actually conclude on the declaration of potentially dangerous dog. I just like to, this is just for your information. I'm working with Elizabeth and Katie to schedule an upcoming hearing, and also we'll be developing a little bit of a script for you leading to that hearing. I just want to give you a heads up. We'll receive this request for an appeal, and we will be scheduling that hearing here shortly. Any questions?
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions.
No.
I think this is what we were looking for, just to kind of get the other side of things, so.
Yeah, and this is a brand new process for us, and also for the board members, so it will be good just to go through this process, and I think it is just I believe the Thurston County Code is designed to go through that check and balance process, and here we are, so more to come on that.
My request is just that, the written packet of material on which the board will, that we have that at least a week before any proposed hearing so that we can make sure that we're fully prepared for asking questions and understanding what's been submitted up to this point.
Yes, sir, we'll do that.
Okay. Okay, then no questions there. Let's go to item 3, public testimony, scenic shores.
Yes, something that you discussed this last week, and this is related to a letter that we received early in the year from I believe it was the president of the Scenic Shores Community Association. And they were claiming at that time back in May, there may be some violations of a property owner by having many connections to an existing septic system. The result of that first letter, you instructed me to work with the staff in providing a response. We provided a response back in August 7, 2021. That response is included in your packet this morning. And the result of that correspondence, you receive another correspondence from the president of the Scenic Shore Community Association on September 29th, raising arguments that perhaps is not adequate that response that we have provided back in August 7, 2021. So this morning, you would like to have a further conversation, and I have with me staff from Public Health as well as CPED that can be of assistance to the board as to how this issue can move forward.
Can I don't know who's taking the lead here. Is it Brett or no? Art?
Steve is in the room, so he will take the lead.
Oh, Steve's in the room. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, if you can just walk us through what the problem was and then kind of how we responded to it and where we are.
Okay, certainly. Steve Peterson, Program Manager with the Environmental Health Division, Public Health and Social Services. I believe back in 2020, we received a complaint from Scenic Shores Community Association, and their concern was that a property owner had connected multiple RVs to an existing septic system in their residential neighborhood. We had staff investigate it and determined that the property does not have a house on it. It's a vacant property. It has a permitted and approved septic system from the early 90s, so it's a system that we would consider modern construction. And we determined at that time that there was no surfacing sewage, there was no imminent health threat, there was no indication that the property owners were using the system outside the capacity of the volume of sewage that the system was permitted for. They did deviate from the original approval. The property owners did. The original approval was for a single-family residence. There is not a single-family residence. Instead, they connected a number of RVs. We designated that, after speaking with the property owner, as a non-conforming septic system. We sent them a letter indicating that and gave them the options of and the process of how to bring that back into compliance. To give you some idea, to put this in context, what a non-conforming system is, if a homeowner doesn't have a record drawing certifying the installation of a septic system, if they put a garden shed over their designated reserve area, if they put a driveway over a portion of the drain field, patio over a drain field, 4-bedroom home with a 3-bedroom system. Those are all deviations or violations in the code. Does that mean that the system is not functioning properly or there's an imminent health threat? No, it does not. So situations like that, we take a less aggressive form of enforcement action. So we label them as non-conforming, we notify the property owners, and we flag the properties in our permit tracking system. We do take aggressive and definitive enforcement action if there's imminent health threats. So if there were a failing septic system out there where people had access to sewage where they could come in contact with it and potentially, get an illness, we would take action. In this particular case, we've designated as non-conforming. We flagged the property, and we've given the homeowner the process to move forward if they want to bring it into compliance. It is more a passive enforcement versus, sending out notices of violation, getting the prosecutor involved in the courts. Based on past discussions and direction from the board, this is how we've been doing it for many, 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 many years. If this property owner were to come in and apply for a review, we can and certainly will give approval to connect some type or some number of RVs to that septic system. There is nothing in the sanitary code, both locally or at the state level, that prohibits a homeowner from connecting an RV to a permitted and approved or conforming septic system. So again, the only reason we have designated as non-conforming is we haven't reviewed it and given approval for the connections of the RV. But they do have a permitted and approved septic system, and there's no evidence of surfacing sewage or any imminent health threat. So this is our standard protocol, is to make a determination that it's non-conforming and flag the property. That appears to be, based on the letters from the Scenic Shores Community Association, unacceptable to them, and they would like more aggressive enforcement from the county. And if I understand their most current letter, they want the RVs removed from the property. I believe is I guess my best summary of the situation.
Is there, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Is there an application from this property owner to bring this property up to compliance, or?
To my knowledge, they have not applied, they have it
Okay.
reviewed currently.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, sir.
A follow-up could be that if they choose to build on that property or do something on that property, they would have to come into compliance before they finish their project or something, is that right?
You're absolutely correct, sir.
And that's kind of the hammer you have, if you will?
That is correct. The reason we flagged the property as non-conforming, it's listed as a violation in our permit tracking. So if this property owner comes in for any kind of county approvals, land use, building, we would recommend denial of those permits until they brought the system into compliance. So in this particular case, if they chose to build a 3-bedroom residence, which was originally the proposal for the septic, they would have to remove all the RVs before we would recommend issuance of a building permit to connect that residence to that permitted and approved system.
And then as a follow-up to that, apparently, and I don't know the exact situation, but that system was designed to handle what, 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, what?
3 bedrooms or up to 360 gallons of wastewater flow per day.
And so if it's got 3 RVs hooked up to it, I'm not advocating or saying that's okay, but if it does have 3 RVs, it probably got like a 3-bedroom house, right? Is that the way it would be?
Well, RVs, I can give you a general assessment, okay? Because RVs, depending on how they're using the RVs and what facilities are available, we know we can permit a minimum of 3 RVs to connect to that system. Depending on how they go, we might be able to even go up to 6 RVs on that system if they came in and asked for a review and approval. So I can tell you, we would issue approval to connect the RVs to that system as long as there's not a single family house there. So they can get approval for some number of RVs. I can't tell you exactly how many because it'll be depending on how they propose to use those RVs. Now, I'm only speaking for the sanitary code. I can't speak for planning or zoning requirements and such.
Okay, then the option that this community association might have would be their own covenances if they address that topic. I mean, if their covenances address that issue of so many RVs or whatever. Is that right? I mean, is that what
You're exactly correct, sir.
So there is a remedy, it's just not through, possibly just not through the county, depending on what their homeowners association.
It's not through public health.
Yeah,
Because again, I can't speak for CDvg.
Okay, that's good, thank you.
Yeah.
When the Mr. Gothrow, he talks about, why aren't we for for the life of me, I'm quoting the letter, for the life of me, I cannot figure out why your staff is not directing the property owners to comply with the law. So the law that he's referring to, it sounded to me like they've got the law is, probably there's a law that says don't do anything outside the bounds of your permit. And you're saying the permit says that he's got the septic system that's supposed to have a single family residence. Is that what's being violated here? Or is there some other code or ordinance that I'm not hearing or seeing?
Yes, sir. What he is in violation of, they have deviated from their approved permit. And that's why we've designated it as non-conforming. It doesn't mean that system isn't still operating exactly like it should. Because again, there's no evidence that they're exceeding the flows of 360 gallons per day that it's approved for. And there's no evidence of any type of surfacing sewage or some type of imminent health threat.
So when you designate it non-conforming, does the property owner get a letter to that effect or some notice of some kind?
Yes, we had sent a letter some time ago to the property owner, I think June 26th, 2020.
There's a patch in your packet, Commissioner.
To the property owner?
Yeah, to Mr. Williams Center.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh,
And
Williamson.
I checked the property records and he was designated as the contact, but I believe there's 7 actual people listed as property owners.
Oh.
I believe it's a family situation, I believe.
Family trust.
And
Yeah.
the staff, well, I guess I, also provided the same information back to the Homeowners Association back in June of 2020. So.
Okay, so in a sense, I'm just trying to connect dots. In a sense, a notice of a non-conforming system, it may not be stated quite as directly as the homeowners association would like, but essentially it is directing the property owners to comply with law. I guess I'm just, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like maybe the issue here is just a disagreement about the enforcement system that we employ, what our standard operating procedure is when there's not a public health risk, as you pointed out, and frustration with that, I guess. Is that a fair way to kind of characterize what the dispute is here?
I believe you're correct, sir. I believe that we have a recreational property that's being used as a recreational property with multiple RVs. I've heard that they build fires and smoke out the neighborhood. And I believe that there's residents in the association that don't believe that's a compatible use in their subdivision.
Which that is a different conversation. Maybe Brett can elaborate on the actual land use of this property.
Can I ask a question for septics just before we go?
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Mejia, and then we'll go to Brett.
Perfect. My question's in regards to, in his letter, he mentions that the 2 adjacent properties have now mimicked the very same thing. They've installed a septic system with the caveat of building a 2-bedroom house. So has that, probably this is, when you got the letter, it's the first time you're hearing about this. Has that been looked at yet, or is it going to be?
If we receive a formal complaint with the property address or a tax parcel, we would investigate it like we do any complaint. And if it's the same basic situation, and we would do the same thing to the other properties. Well, that's less, of course, the board provides different direction. I guess that's always an option.
And maybe as a follow-up to Commissioner Mejia's question, I would just point out from a historical perspective, and I don't know what their homeowners association guidelines cover, but that community was put in place, I want to say in the 60s. And it was initially a recreation area, and I believe there's quite a few septic systems in place so that they could be hooked up to, I'm going to say, temporary RVs. I'm not sure about that, but the history of that property, a lot of folks before they built a house did come out and recreated that property over the past 50 years. And then eventually they go on to build the house, and so they've already got the septic in place. And actually it's worked out pretty good for having treatable septic rather than something like what Art puts up with all the time on that one. Art, I can't even think of the name of the outfit, but I know it's giving you a headache.
Camping club.
Yeah, that camping club thing. So
Yeah.
I think they've done better than that by far. And
Yeah, they have a permitted and approved system. It's
Yeah.
a modern system. It's a pressure distribution system, which I know you're very fond of.
I know, yes. I was trying not to get involved. We're leaving that alone.
I couldn't resist.
Okay, well, it sounds like you've kind of got it covered to me, but I'd be interesting to hear what Brett's got to say, I guess.
Go ahead, Brett.
Thank you. Brett Burris, Development Services Manager for Community Plan and Economic Development. The historical references that were addressed and identified is absolutely correct. CPED in particular received a complaint in 2014 regarding RVs on the site. There was a plat and covenant review of that subdivision, and it was determined that the plat and covenant predates zoning standards and requirements. So therefore, the covenants apply to this specific subdivision. And as you know, CPED enforcement does not regulate or implement enforcement regarding private covenants.
So can you repeat what you mean by that? So there's private covenants that do govern, but you don't enforce those? Someone would go to court for that or whatnot? Is that?
That is correct. Community plan economic development enforcement is solely for the enforcement of the zoning ordinance and not enforcement of private covenants or CC&Rs for individual subdivisions.
Questions for Brett?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. We ready to move on then?
Well, I believe they expect a response, and the response is going to be similar to the response that we provided to them on August 7th. So I'm a little bit struggling as to what else we can provide. I mean, we already responded to the initial letter. Sending another letter outlining the same responses, I don't know how adequate will that be, but
Can we do something with the, well, maybe your HOA guidelines, rules, I'm not sure what they are, what are those called? Maybe they have something, maybe.
Covenants.
The covenants, yeah, and maybe you should look at those and see if there's a recourse there.
I believe that Brett gave a pretty good explanation, so if that was somehow included into the letter, something similar to what Steve sent back already, that, hey, this was put in place before our particular regulatory process is put in place, and so you have to depend on your homeowners association covenants as to address this concern at this point in time. I think what they're concerned about is they're gonna have kind of a pretty shabby area there if this continues. But I think the covenants do address the possibility of leaning the property should they not follow their covenants. I believe that's in place, but I don't know the answer to that completely.
okay. Brett, let's have a silent conversation. Maybe you can help me put some language to draft additional response based on your perspective. And I will emphasize the response from Steve, August 7 still stands, and we provide additional information related as to how the covenants can be an instrument as to how they will address this particular issue with the RVs. And I will sign that letter to them.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, is that good? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. I know that you just came back from vacation, so I appreciate it.
I did. I had to scramble to get ready for you. Thank you.
Okay, before we go into executive session, and I'm not sure how long that's anticipated to last, but we have maybe time for a few commissioner items. Is that okay, Ramiro?
Yeah, the executive session may last probably 30 minutes, and just to make sure the board members have questions.
Let's address commissioner items for the next 12 minutes then. I have a couple of things just to let the board know, but start with Commissioner Mejia.
Yes, I guess I'll start with asking a question on the Sheriff's Civil Association. It's with the legal assistance. I forgot the name, I apologize. We were gonna have a briefing with HR and.
That is next week.
That's next week? Okay.
Commissioner Edwards, we'll just go around the horn. all the
No,
time.
you go ahead, sir.
Okay, I have three things. I'll just go start with the first one. They're in no particular order of importance. The lot board will be considering on Wednesday night a resolution regarding succession planning that they've been doing. They've been anticipating their executive director to retire. That's anticipated in September of 2022. So they created an assistant, like an associate director position. They selected a candidate for that. They've been hand training this successor through all sorts of professional development, and little by little, he's been taking over presentations and more of the executive director stuff to be ready. So the proposal for the board, we're going to be interviewing him. I mean, we all know him because he's been, working with the board for the last, several years, but we're going to be interviewing him. And then there's going to be a resolution proposed where we would say, basically adopt, we would sort of bless the process of sort of this succession going through this candidate. Of course, there are going to be at least 2 new board members for lot next year. And of course, it could be reversed by a previous board. It's really nothing set in stone, but it would be this board's expression of support for this process that lot has been engaged in. I'm supportive of it myself, but it's been something that each of the board members wanted to, since we all have a stake in lot, and the executive director is obviously a really important person. We wanted to kind of go to each of our respective councils to hear any concerns about this. I've spoken to Jennifer Walker, our public works director, who sits on the technical team for law, and she's very supportive. The candidate is Matt Kennelly, and I think he's done an excellent job preparing himself for what it's slightly unusual process, but it's not unprecedented. They gave us a few examples of wastewater treatment facilities around Western United States that have done this type of a succession. It's such a specialized business that there are elements of the business that kind of lend itself to doing things this way if you've got somebody you really are happy to see move up. So I just wanted to lay that out for you guys to see if you had any real concerns about it or worried about it, or had any questions that I could answer.
I'm okay with it if you are. I mean, you sit on that board, and if you, I think you have the most interaction with him. So for me, if you're comfortable with it and you have no concerns, then
Yeah,
I don't have any either.
same for me, sir.
Okay, I appreciate that. Then I don't know if the resolution will be adopted, but it's going to be proposed, and assuming the interview goes well with Mr. Kennelly, I probably will be supporting the resolution. So, okay, back to Commissioner Mejia then.
The Keep Washington Working policy. I remember that we were going to receive comments, and we received some comments via email. Where are we on that? I felt like we were moving ahead, and then it kind of just like stopped. So
Yeah, we incorporated all the comments. We have a draft, and that's one of the things that I need to follow up with Elizabeth, just to circle back. So I think we're in a good place to have, a pretty close policy for the board to consider. So that we're in the last steps. I know it has taken a little time, but we're there. Almost.
I have another. Can I do a follow-up question for that? Is this something that Nicole Miller can, I don't know if she has more community connections and get more input on it to show it, these are the comments we received, and reach out to different communities and
So you're requesting for
I'm
the,
just-
for the public to provide comments on this policy, or?
Yeah, just,
So that's a little bit different from the direction that we have received from the board in the past.
well, when we received public comments for it already, right? And we implemented that. So, I mean, was there a period for that? What was the idea for that then?
So we received comments both internal from the stakeholders from the courts, the sheriff, and those have been incorporated. And I think we also reach out to members of the public. So I'm not sure what else you would like us to suggest or do.
Well, no, I was just suggesting with you know, with Nicole now being here, if maybe, because I feel like we reached two specific groups without knowing exactly what was out there. I feel like maybe she might have a broader view of what really is out there in those community groups that are involved, and just have her reach out and say, that's just a suggestion though. I haven't seen the latest draft, so.
How about if give us time to bring up the latest draft, and then at that point the board may have a conversation what else additional outreach you'd like to take. Would that work?
Okay.
I understand where you're going, Commissioner, but this has taken so long to get to the finish line that I want to get it done, because I think it's way overdue. But certainly if we see an opportunity, you know, for a particular outreach, then I guess we could talk about that once we see. Okay, thank you for raising that, by the way, because I sort of forgot about that, and it comes up to I remember it periodically, and that's good to get a status update on that. Commissioner Edwards, anything?
Where are we at on the employees vaccination issue? Did we get anything settled about who pays for the testing and, you know, different things like that, and about how many are we at? How many are looking towards leaving employment here? Do we know any of those answers yet?
So we have reached an agreement with all the unions except for the sheriff deputies and corrections. All the other unions have reached an agreement and in the process of signing that MOU with the unions. So I don't have an answer for you on your last questions, how many employees will leave employment. I don't have that specifically related to this proposal. So we're working on that. There's hopefully we can send a draft of a policy, temporary policy, to all county employees. We're just waiting to reach an agreement with the larger unions, and then we'll start implementing that. So it's coming.
Okay, thank you.
My next one is an update. I'd asked the board for the Climate Action Steering Committee was considering a study to look at the true cost of building electrification. This is about trying to see where burdens might fall, you know, on developers, on property owners, to try to understand where we need to sort of mitigate impacts and how to design a program that would be, you know, best for the community. So with $7,500 per jurisdiction, but these proposals, you know, we don't commit to funding, you know, through the climate plan, at least at this juncture. So we all kind of take this back to our councils, and it looks like we're going to have Olympia, Tumwater, and the county involved. And so that would mean $10,000, not $7,500. I would just say that doing things and the climate, and number one, this comes from the money that we have already previously earmarked for implementation of the plan. Number two, doing things kind of equally between the jurisdictions really ends up helping the county because we're the largest percentage. So even with Lacey not necessarily being willing to pull the trigger and participate on this, I think we're still, I like to promote the idea that we share costs equally, because that, you know, it shows partnership, and it also kind of helps the county, to be honest, just because, you know, something like JazzCom, where it's by strict percentage, we end up paying the lion's share of everything. So anyway, I'm still comfortable with it, but I certainly wanted the board could say, no, only want to spend $7,500 and that's it. Or I think it's going to be something that will be valuable to us, and it comes from our climate implementation money, but I wanted your concurrence to say that we would go ahead and up our share to 10,000.
I don't have any problem with
I
it.
don't have any problem with it either. I'm fine. with
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Appreciate that. We still got a couple minutes. Anything else?
Oh.
Yeah.
Whose turn was it? I lost my place. Maybe.
No, I'm good.
One issue that's been brought to our attention on the Veterans Advisory Board, a citizen concern. Apparently, we don't have a letter of appointment from that nationally recognized group that nominates those folks. So Amy is looking into it to see if we need to send something out or the veterans group does. So probably have a better answer for you next week or so.
Thank you, Commissioner. Sounds good. I got to squeeze one more thing in and then we'll go to executive session. The auditor and I have been discussing, I know Ramiro as well, the concept of an accessible communities advisory committee. This was something we looked at a couple of years ago when some community members asked me to look into it. We couldn't really find a place for it to land in the county, and we never proceeded with it. The auditor, though, believes, I think, and she's worked with some of the prosecuting attorneys to make sure there's some legal, she's gotten some new legal information that she shared with me yesterday, that this can be done. I've got the statutes in front of me through the voter access committee that we already have. They can expand their responsibilities in certain regards. And so she's going to bring an AIS forward, I believe, for us to consider. And I just wanted the board to kind of plant the seed that this is coming and we can take it up. Commissioner Mejia.
Yes. So thank you for bringing that up. I received a lot of community input very early on about establishing a committee, and I had conversations with our county manager about what it would take to establish one here. And the auditor recently brought it up to me, and I kind of, explained to her. I see the need for it, and I understand where she's coming from, but I also believe that this is also a budget request, because in order to access a lot of grants, we have to have that match back already set aside, from what I understood, from some of the specific grants. So that's kind of my only thing with it is, if she can do this through the voters, which committee was it? The voters accessibility?
Yeah, I forget what it's called. Voters Accessibility Committee, something like that. Or access.
That's great, but I feel like there still needs to be something set aside, a budgetary amount set aside for certain requests that come back, because once they start, setting policy and starting, we need this, and we have to be able to be like, okay, this is the funds that we're going to be using for those projects specifically.
That's a good point. I'm not sure that, I don't think though the existence of the committee doesn't commit us to apply for X, Y, or Z. I think it's within the purview of, and of course that would have to come through the board, but I saw Ramiro, your hand.
Yes, and we have been exploring this for 2 years, Commissioner, as we stated, and that was your initiative, Commissioner Messer, 2 years ago. And at that point, we didn't know where it could fit organizationally. Fast forward, I think the county auditor provided one step as to how this committee can be standing. Nicole Miller is working with one of her staff just to make sure we're moving forward. And I'd like to, I think it's 2 steps on this. It's standing the committee, which is probably good for the community. But also one of the impetus of having this committee is to access grants the state has. And I think that probably lies a little bit of my concern. Because if we're gonna go ahead and apply for grants for 88 projects, no grant that I know of is gonna be able to fulfill and completely fund those 88 projects that we have in need. So then I'd like to probably walk through a very fine line in terms of if the impetus is to access grants, that those grants doesn't bind the county financially for more than what we can. because those grants could be applied for $50,000 per se, but if the project cost is $200,000, where would the additional money will come from? And I think that's probably what lies a little bit my concern related to a potential financial commitment in the future for the county. So I think it's good for the board to consider extending this committee, but I will strongly encourage you. They put some side rails as to what money this potential committee could bring for potential projects. Anything Robin has that?
I would also say that we have many ADA needs in our buildings. So we would have to consider which projects would go first in some priority order. And we've looked at this, and the estimated cost is potentially in the millions. And the commitment that the county has made is to address these issues as we upgrade and remodel buildings. So we've had a plan to address them with or without a committee. And my concern is that when we did this initial work, there appeared to be a requirement that the work would have to be done if the committee identified it. So I'm very concerned about being able to pay for this work.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
So if it goes under the Voters Accessibility Committee, for the auditor, is that right?
No, go.
Okay. Does that mean that, will this be for then main campus and all the buildings that go along with county government, or is this only going to be for the Mottman complex and the ballot processing center?
No, this would be broader. I think that the auditor intends to make a presentation, and I think we can get into a lot of these sub-issues. I would be highly surprised if what Ramabin said, that you're committing to a process where if a committee identifies an issue, then you're legally obligated to fix it. I don't think it's not my understanding of how it works, but I think we can get into those details at a later point.
Well,
so I don't.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Commissioner Mejia, I wanted to be respectful of your question. My understand, this would not be, and I've talked to Mary about it. It's not that, obviously she's got a need at Mottman, but that's not, she understands that this is a broader community across the whole. It's not the intent that this just addresses Mottman.
Actually, she's been pushing a need at Building 5.
Yeah, well, and there's also an issue, well, I know there's also an issue at Mottman.
Well, and as a follow-up to Robin, and this is a larger issue. The Department of Justice has put in local jurisdictions for almost 15 years. Each local jurisdiction needs to develop a transition plan. And the transition plan includes assessment of all the ADA deficiencies that we have in the county, and not just in facilities, but also on county roads. So we have developed, and we need to revisit as to what that transition plan will be. We have already identified those deficiencies. And I believe as soon as we continue to work on that, as soon as we upgrade a facility, we address the ADA facilities, that is a good step forward in addressing some of the requirements from the Department of Justice. That requirements applies to every single jurisdiction and every single facility across the country. And Public Works, and you see on their TIP, Transportation Improvement Program, they already have in line item as the ADA compliance. So we as a county, we need to make sure that we as a facilities, we need to be strategic as to how we're going to be addressing the ADA deficiencies that we have in our facilities, aging buildings, aging facilities. So, and again, I'm not opposed to this committee. Please don't take me wrong about this. And I have been very clear with the auditor when she brought this to me. That is not my intent. I just want to make sure that I believe that I have an obligation not to bind the county financially or any type of obligations that perhaps we will not be able to meet in the future. So.
Conversation to have, but I mean, if we don't continue the conversation, then we don't get those problems surmounted, so.
Yeah, I'm also in support of this, but I also feel like there needs to be kind of like a budgetary request that comes along with it. Because if this committee is going to be recommending, you know, kind of, this is what we need to do, then, and we need to access grants, we have to have that ability in our budget to be like, okay, this is what we have reserved for these specific kind of projects.
Okay, so sounds like more to come on that. I'm just looking at well, I'll look at this later, but I was just curious about, it's been a while since I looked at the statutes about the scope of what the committee looks at. Is it just government buildings, or is it accessibility issues across the wider community? I thought it was the latter, but we can talk about that later. Let's get to our executive session. Last item on this morning's agenda is an executive session pursuant to RCW 4230-1101I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions, or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation. The specific topic is 3000 Pacific building location. Commissioners' action may follow. It is 11:40. We're estimating 30 minutes, so we'll estimate it to be back at 12:10. So with that, we will begin the executive session. Our prosecuting attorney and Elizabeth Petridge is here.
Get a minute to